Hi, Kim Doyle here, Faith Talk TV. We're on the scene this morning at the Transformation Church. This is Sun Prairie, and we have a very special guest today who happens to inspire us on Faith Talk TV all the time. And just so happens I have the author of Experiencing God sitting next to me, Richard Blackaby. Not every day I can say, what does Richard have to say, and he's right next to me. So did you encourage yourself this morning with Experiencing God?
Well, I try to always do that. Yeah.
Do you read your own devotional?
Well, not every day. Yeah. I like to find something profound to read. So
sure, yeah. That's good. Well, it was kind of fitting this morning. The verse was Proverbs 27:17, that as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friends. And it talks about the Christian life and friendship and how important it is for people to come alongside each other and help each other in the pilgrimage. And Richard, you've certainly done that for us with Faith Talk TV and your ministry, so we thank you for that. I thought that was a great fitting verse, as this book just always speaks so much to us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And, well, our ministries always look to see where God's at work, and we always want to get involved in that, and we've certainly seen God at work in your ministry, and so it's our privilege to help whenever we can.
Right. Well, they always say God can use anybody, even ordinary mom and former flight attendant, and but
he specializes in ordinary people.
Right.
That's why he made so many of them.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yesterday we heard Richard and Henry speaking at the Hearing God's Voice conference, and that was really a blessing. You know, what was kind of interesting is usually you hear someone and then you read your book, but this time we'd read you and never heard you speak before, and so we really enjoyed that, and you were quite funny, and your dad was
I don't want to be.
Yeah, right. And your dad was a real pleasure also.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And that's a pretty important subject to us. If you don't know when God's speaking, it's pretty hard to live the Christian life, because it's just guesswork after that. And you can read the Bible, but there's so much that God wants to apply from the Bible into your life, and that's where hearing His voice is so important.
Right, and I loved the quote Henry said yesterday about God doesn't give us suggestions.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and being obedient?
Well, my father likes to say God doesn't give suggestions, He gives commands. And when God speaks, it's not for us to decide if we feel like doing what He said or to think about it for a while. And when God speaks, then the next thing we do tells everything about what we believe about God. If He really is the Lord of the universe and the Lord of our life, we've got no right to say, can I get back to you 6 months from now and see if I'm ready to obey what you said.
Right. Well, as you can see here, I have a little Blackaby library.
You've got more books than I do.
I know. I said I probably keep them in business, trying to get them on the bestseller with all my book sales. Just kind of going back to the first few books I read of the Blackabys, Experiencing Prayer with Jesus with your dad. And so I thought that was kind of funny that your dad influenced me before you.
He's older.
That's right, that's right. And Experiencing God, of course. But as we started Faith Talk TV, Phyllis and I were using Unlimiting God, and I just loved the opening part of this that talked about no more business as usual, how we already have enough men. But Unlimiting God has been very influential in my life. So I thank you as when we met you.
Well, thank you. And that's sort of a life story for me. It's just about the same limitless God wants to relate to every person. And yet you look at one person's life and there's very little of the miraculous in their life. And another person, it seemed like God's all over them. And you just say, well, it's the very same God. So why is God so active in this life and not in this life? Well, it has nothing to do with God. He gives the very same invitation. But it's that some people are just hungry for more of God, and they'll do whatever it takes. And other people are just satisfied. This is enough of the Christian life for me. It's enough of God. So I'll just keep on spending the rest of my life right here in this place, experiencing nothing more than what I am right now. And I just say, life's too short to just stay where you are. There's always, when God says, if you seek me, you're going to find me, how much of me do you want to experience? And I would say, well, I want to keep experiencing more. So today is great, but tomorrow I want there to be more.
Right.
And I think that delights God. I think God's delighted when someone says, so what would it take to know more of you and your power and to hear more of what you have to say and what's on your heart. And so there are some that always just relentlessly keep going to the next level. And so this book has just been an encouragement for people to say, my question is, what would it take for you to go to the next level with God? And for you, it might be different than me, but there's always something that holds us back from going to the next place with God.
Right. So I know you guys have so much going on, and I know we're busy here, but do you want to talk a little bit about spiritual leadership or any of those, like what you've got with your new website? And
yeah, well, you know, I think probably for my dad and I, as we've asked God, how does God want us to invest our life, we really feel like it's with leaders. And so you can't, I mean, we love going into churches, we love to encourage individual believers, but I think God wants us to maximize our effort, and that's with people of influence, and it may be parents who are leading their home, or certainly business leaders or church leaders, but we've just found that whenever God wants to do a fresh work in a country or church, he always raises up a leader, or maybe several leaders, but through those leaders, God just, they're his instruments to move his people where he wants them to be. So 10 years ago we wrote the book Spiritual Leadership, and God has really used it. It's a textbook in a lot of Bible colleges and seminaries, but after 10 years my father and I have been reading and studying and speaking on 6 different continents about this and meeting a lot of wonderful leaders. We were privileged when the publisher came back and said, well, this has been used so much, we'd like to give you a chance after 10 years to update it. And I'd read hundreds of books and given countless talks and lectures and speaking engagements on leadership, and so I pulled 10 years worth of intensive study to update this book. And you know, it's funny, no matter how great of a job you do in a book, if you look at it 10 years later, you think, wow, there's so much I should have said,
Sure.
and can't believe I didn't add this, or I could have said this more succinctly. And so I just overhauled everything, added a couple of new chapters, address all the current issues that are out there today. And so this just was released as well. So
yeah, I saw that.
My boys, you know, they wrote a real fun book, I mean, although it's a serious topic. pretty zany.
No,
I gotta say, yeah, I wish I could have, but this is kind of my passion. There's a lot of stories about leaders from history, leaders throughout the Bible, and just watching how God used ordinary people to influence their world. And a lot of people just say, well, yeah, but I'm not a leader. And I would say, well, do you feel like you're a person that God wants to use to make a difference? Maybe it's just a difference with one person. Maybe you start a prayer group with 3 people in your church, but there wasn't a prayer group before, and because you stepped up, now there's prayer going on. And you know, it could be just you've got 2 kids, and I want to say, well, is there a greater leadership role you'll ever have than having an influence on those 2 kids? So why would you not want to be the best person of spiritual influence you can be? And
sure.
so that's what this is all about, is just saying, God, I don't have to be the president of a country or a CEO of a company to be a person of spiritual influence.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, for my own life, I just pray, I'm not looking at anybody else. I just want to say at the end of the day, was my life used to the maximum that God intended when he put me on the earth in the first place?
Sure.